Welcome back to another episode of the QRL Show, the place where you come for the crypto and stay for the quantum. In today's episode, my co-host Michael Strike and I from the QRL team are having an AMA with QRL lead blockchain developer Kumar Singh to discuss all things development progress, everything from POW to POS, Zond, signature schemes, quantum resistance, and much more. Michael and Kaushal, it's great to have you guys with me.
Hi
Hey guys.
guys, thanks for having me again.
Yeah, appreciate it. As QRL development progresses, there's certainly a lot to discuss and cover in terms of what's being developed and built, front-facing stuff, and also what's under the hood and isn't always being seen on a day-to-day basis. So this past week, Strike and I pulled a range of community questions, and throughout this conversation, we're going to try to cover as many of those as we can, combining a few questions that maybe overlap to help provide insight for the community. So if you're ready, Michael and I are going to just kind of go back and forth and start asking some of these good AMA questions. You ready?
Yeah, sure, bring it on.
Kaushal, as a first question, can you briefly describe the current stage we're at in terms of the development roadmap? I know we're going to cover a bit more of this throughout the questions in AMA, but can you just give us a brief overview in terms of where we're at today and kind of give us a little look ahead of where we're going in the next month or so?
Yeah, sure. So, as we already have seen most of the changes into the testnet, but after that we have started working on adding the unit tests and the integration test because we need to make sure whatever code is there, it is completely fully covered and there are no bugs. So, we for the last 1.5 month, or I say for the last 2 months, we are working on the unit test and the integration test, and then we have also started the code cleanup. So there are lots of part of the code which is not required. So what we are doing is removing all of them, ensuring that if there is any deprecated APIs or libraries which are no more needed, or so we are just deleting all of them. So we have removed a couple of APIs which are deprecated, such as personal APIs from the Zond, and we are going to replace that with the CLF, which is a CLI tool already exists in the Ethereum. So we are modifying them in the QRL to make sure that it becomes compatible with both XMSS and dilithium cryptography. Other than that, with the code cleanup is like it's a huge thing because there are lots of lines of code which are no more required because we have taken the code from the Ethereum base code and have modified all of them to make it a post quantum resistant. So there are lots of things that is no more required. So we are deleting all of them, and that includes lots of uh, algorithm, mining algorithm, and all those consensus stuff related to the proof of work. So yeah, that's in progress, and then we will uh, also start working with the XMSS integration. So right now the testnet is running without the XMSS integration. It is totally with the dilithium cryptography. So we once we are finished with the unit test and the integration test, then our next step is to integrate the XMSS and start making changes with the address format as suggested by Robier in the QIP. And at the same time, we also have to modify the compiler. Once that's done, at the same time, we are also working on modification of this reward and the penalty algorithm. So once we are done with all these unit tests and all the code cleanups, that's the next thing that we are going to do.
So what I heard you say, Kaushal, is you've cleaned up any of the unnecessary APIs from the code so that it's secure and tidy, and we'll be able to use both XMSS stateful and also stateless signatures in the future. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. So yeah, we have cleaned up the deprecated API, but not just that, but lots of code were there which were not called from anywhere. So there was no dependency on them. So we have also cleaned up them. So yeah.
Next question that I have. Could you walk us through the transition from proof of work to proof of stake and how that affects overall security consensus? And I think the question is more around what happens. How do you switch a consensus vector from POW to POS? Does it just happen that you pick a block You get all the nodes upgraded, and then you all agree on a block. Then all of a sudden, one block's finished, a proof of work, and then the next one, you've already got your delegations assigned, and you forklift over to POS. How does that work?
I think we also covered this last time, so it's again the same thing. With what we are going to do is, in terms of migration, the first thing is we need to decide at what block we are going to stop the proof of work node. So that means there would be another release of the QRL Python package, and from there we will hard code a specific block number where the mining will stop, as long as the miners have updated with the latest QRL node version. And once that stops, then the new Zond code which we have built, which is Zond and the Go Zond and the Chrism, those node will start with a specific timing when the consensus mechanism on those nodes will activate. So between the stopping of the proof of work node and the start of this POS node, there would be a gap of uh, let's say 2 or 3 days, something like that, whichever we decide. We have not finalized that, so there would be a gap, and from there on the proof of stake will activate. And during this process, uh, we will be taking some we will be having a complete guideline like how you are going to migrate your wallets from the proof of work to proof of stake, is because you have already made lots of transactions on the POW node, the Python node of the QRL, which is going through the proof of work. So there are lots of OTS indices that you have already used. So we have to mark all of them as used on the proof of stake network. So that means there are lots of necessary state files or the data that we will be migrating from proof of work to proof of stake. And yeah, so those state files might be a bit bigger. I mean, bit bigger from the normal node size, because that is something would be provided in the Genesis block. So yeah, that's the basic plan at this moment. There will be other changes which we will reveal once we move more closer to the site, when we most probably with the audit. So when we move more closer to the audit of the proof of stake code, then we will reveal other plans like how the migration is going to happen, what you have to do on the proof of work node to ensure the smooth migration and all those stuffs.
So moving on to the next one, what are the main challenges that you and the team are facing as development continues with Zond, and based on those, how are you addressing them? And I know some of them challenges might be bigger than others, but with anything being built that's novel and new, there's always challenges. So if you could give us a little bit of insight or a little bit of a look into some of the challenges and how the team's helping address and stomp those out, that'd be really helpful.
Okay. Yeah. So, in short, in terms of roadblock, we don't have any roadblock which is stopping the development. Okay.
Hmm.
So, there's no roadblock which is going to stop or taking more time. But yeah, it's like there are lots of things that has to be done, and we are doing that. But in terms of challenges, what I mean with the roadblock is like we do not have anything that is stopping. But yeah, we had challenges and we have challenges too,
Yeah.
because we are in the post quantum cryptography, and there are still research required further, which involves the signature aggregation to do this safely. And these are the things which is going to limit our like how many number of nodes we can support at a time, because we do not have any signature aggregation which is post quantum secure with the post, which works completely fine with the post quantum cryptography. And because of that, you see that we have like we mentioned 40,000 QRL required for the staking. That's just to limit the number of nodes that we can support at a time, which is based on 40,000 quanta. It's like let's say if there are 100 million quantas in the network, then there will be like maximum 2,500 nodes which would be acting as a validator. So that is one of the challenges that we faced. But okay, that's how we are going to solve it, is to have a 40,000 or 50,000 or something like that amount of quanta required to participate in the proof of stake validator. But yeah, this is something which will take time. So once in future when we will have any aggregation algorithm which is which is something well proven and post quantum secure, standardized by NIST, then we can use that in our blockchain and can solve the issues further, and we can scale our blockchain to support more node as a validator. So yeah, these are the things. So mostly our challenges are with the lack of the cryptography stuffs, which doesn't allow us a safe a signature aggregation with the post quantum cryptography. And this is that also stops us with the other stuffs like scaling or having some kind of features like sharding. So yeah.
Yeah, and it's important to look at it from what are the things that are in our control on the development team, and then there's other parts that are not in our control but play an impact, and we just need to be aware and staying ahead of the curve on stuff, whether it's keeping up to date with the latest with what NIST is doing, or just making sure that we're staying ahead of the curve, which we continue to and plan to. So thanks for diving into the insight there, and there's a lot of moving parts, so I think that covering that a little is helpful. Strike, you
Yeah.
want to jump into the next one? Next
Yeah,
question?
the other part of that was 40,000 is the limit, right? That's the minimum amount in order to run a staking node.
So that 40,000, yeah, we have shared parameters like how this affects overall the consensus mechanism parameter that we shared on the Discord with the community. So 40,000 is decided, but it's not yet fixed. It could still change, but the chances of changes are low compared to the chances of changes when we haven't declared anything, when it was 10,000 quanta by default. But it could still change. It is not something hard coded. It could still change, but that would be a minor, in my opinion. Or if the community decides to play with the parameters, trying to take uh, the consequences of having some kind of reduction or some kind of cons on other parameters, and to gain to gain this to maximize number of nodes by reducing this uh, quanta required to stake. So that is possible too. But yeah, okay, chances of changes are low, but yeah, there is still chances. But the finalized value would be the only one which will decide after the audit is done.
Sure. All right. Thank you. One of the other questions I have is on here. Let's see. How do fusion signatures impact transaction speed, efficiency, and could you compare and contrast fusion with signature algorithm? Excuse me, signature aggregation.
So we are not going to integrate fusion signatures at this point of time because we need like more time to make sure that it is completely secure. And only way that you can ensure that it is completely secure is if more people start using it, more peer reviews happens, and more comments comes from the public, people who are experts of the cryptographies. So we don't think that it is good to take a risk with the new cryptography without being peer reviewed by multiple cryptographers or without being standardized by NIST. So yeah, instead of taking that kind of risk and then have some negative stuffs on the blockchain, we better want to wait for NIST to finalize something that we can trust on.
Okay, so you were waiting for NIST, and so that's one of the advantages of working with the QRL is in some ways we've been able to, specifically with XMSS and hash-based signature schemes. What 5 or 6 years ago, we were able to almost predict when they were predict the XMSS and LMS being approved by NIST. So yeah, to your point, we have to. I agree. We have to wait and see what the internationally recognized standards are, and all of the peer reviews and the community reviews to see what the consensus is as far as what's secure. So based on that, can you share any insights onto the roadmap for the what are the for the QRL Zond upgrade? What are the big milestones for this upcoming Zond upgrade?
So for this new one, it's like with the Zond, you are going to have a new cryptography which is dilithium, which doesn't used to exist in the QRL proof of works. So that's the first thing. The second upgrade that we are going to have with the Zond that is already on the testnet phase. Testnet phase is the smart contract support. So, and we will have the APIs which would be much more friendly compared to what we have in this proof of work node. So these upgrades are going to be the big things: the smart contract support, the new cryptography dilithium, and of course, the proof of stake consensus mechanism, along with the new friendly APIs compared to what we had. Other than that, we are going to have this QIP, such as the new address format, which is much more readable and less chances for someone to mistake with that. So yeah, these are the things. And with the roadmap, as I mentioned, it's like the currently we are working on the code cleanups. We have already done a lot, but yeah, there's lots of unit tests still to be done and the code cleanups. And then once the Zond is released, so we also have to build lots of tools to support the smart contract or the decentralized application development on the Zond network, which is going to be accompanied by the editor that we will provide for this is like the remix ID which exists for the Ethereum, but we are going to make changes into that to make it compatible with the QRL Zone 2. Along with that, we will also work with this Chrome extension web wallet to the Chrome extension wallet, just to make sure that people can use the remix ID, can deploy the smart contract, can play with it. So that requires this Chrome extension. So yeah, we are going to work all of these things.
Do you think we'll have Zon production this year? In EVM
Uh,
compatibility production on chain this year, or are we looking at next year?
Most probably, yes, this year. It could be in quarter 3 or 4, but quarter 4 should be fine in my opinion. But yeah, most probably this year.
Okay, I'm glad to hear that because on the X Spaces yesterday, I said we'd have EVM compatibility this year. So, I like your answer.
Mo- Moving on to question related to the community is, could you cover maybe a couple ways on how the community can contribute to both the development and success of the QRL beyond just holding tokens, and maybe provide a couple examples and ways that they can contribute. Obviously, it's going to depend on their technical expertise and know-how, but maybe if you could just highlight a couple broad strokes, it would be beneficial for them to maybe understand, hey, this might be a lane that they could contribute in, beyond just being a holder of QRL, and a participant within the community, which are important in and of itself.
Yeah, sure. So as you have mentioned that the contribution for the development and the success of the QRL, so that means it is not totally dependent on the development. So how they can help is there are lots of ways. I already shared that previously in the Discord, but yeah, it's one way is you can write blogs about the QRL, you can make YouTube videos, you can try to do something which increase awareness about the existence of the QRL as a post-quantum blockchain, and which could be anything, which could be like you can teach someone how to write a smart contract on the QRL testnet. You can write the any news or make videos about the features, or you could make a videos or tutorials like how you can install a QRL node or something like that. That's one way. Other ways are like you can always make or build applications that uses QRL somehow. Okay, so it's not like you should be totally dependent on the QRL blockchain. It could be any application. It could be a decentralized exchange, or it could be a simple app which or could be a simple tool that eases some kind of job. It could be something like you can just click on it and deploy a QR node within a minute. So
Yeah.
anything
It could
that you can
range
build.
range anywhere from from a
Yeah, it's
game to an app to something that allows,
totally it tot
explore anything
Mhm.
that, brings someone into the ecosystem. So kind of a smorgasbord of opportunity there.
Yeah, it depends upon your imagination. So there's no limit with that. But yeah, other stuff that you can also do is like you can always do the testing. Like we have released the test net. So whatever people are testing it, reporting us that okay, this is not working, or when they ask questions to us, okay, I gone through documentation, I faced this issue. So every time they interact with us and comes with the questions or the bugs, it helps us to understand that okay, what improvements we can do to make things much easier for the users. So that is also kind of a contribution.
Yeah, no, thank you for covering that one. Do you want to ask
I've
this
got
last
one.
one?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I've got one. This is a little bit It's a little one of the community questions. I'm going to tweak it a little bit. There's a and we've been running into this year. There's been other projects that are that claim quantum security. But when you start digging into some of the details of the project or the tech, you realize that maybe it's quite not. And I'm going to just these are going to be off the top of my head. I'm going to run through a list of things I think you need for quantum security, and then Kaushal, you could probably add to that list. First off, if you're an ERC20, you're not quantum secure because you could XMSS wrap whatever you want, drop it onto the chain, but if someone steals the funds, you don't even have gas on your account to be able to drive to the next town, right? So you're wiped out at that point. So you might be able to, if you're an ERC20, you might be able to store quantum secure data on chain, but that doesn't mean the account itself is quantum secure. Second off, I think you need an actual project. I see a lot of quantum secure projects, and I start digging in, and I'll click on how to run a node, and well, the nodes are upcoming. You have to fill out this email, and there's a
It's a
couple.
waitlist strike.
Yeah, it's a wait list. So I'm just gonna start the conversation with you have to be native. You can't be an ERC20. You have to have an actual project with code. It also has to be, I would say, open source, peer reviewed, not just the code itself, but the protocols themselves. And you have to be quantum secure since Genesis. So, Kaushal, I'd love to throw this over to you. Feel free to agree or disagree.
Fill
Add
in any
anything you
holes.
think
Yeah.
that could be insightful. Yeah.
So yes, I agree with the strike. Whatever he has mentioned is like if a blockchain has to be quantum resistant, then it has to be from the Genesis block. That's true. There are lots of claims which are made just because it's easier to make claims, and usually people, the community are not that, they don't have that much of time, or they are not very much technical that they will dive into it and then find out whether the claims actually matches with the code or not. And that's what the people take, the marketing take the fun of it. It's like the advantage of that. If we just make that kind of claim, and yeah, we are doing this and at the background, so yeah, it's totally fine. But yeah, that's true that you have to be, if you want to be a post quantum blockchain, then it has to be from the Genesis block, and you have to follow the cryptographies which has been standardized and uh, has been proven, peer reviewed by the NIST and other cryptographers. So I agree with that. I don't want to add much on that just because it's about other projects. So I really don't care about much about that. I just want to make sure it's like whatever we are doing in the QRL is just we keep on improving ourselves each day. It's like we don't want to be the competitor. We want to be the do something innovative in the blockchain space.
So to add on to that, here's what and I think we can talk to this a little bit. We're not mentioning any other projects, but we are listing out some qualifiers, and this comes down to people being able to do their own research. We have all the freedom in the world in blockchain, but number one, is there an actual chain? Is there an actual chain? Is there a product? Number two, is the project running on a non-secure blockchain like Ethereum? Because if it's running on Ethereum, a quantum computer can just empty the wallet. Is it quantum secure from Genesis? Number three, it has to be quantum secure since Genesis because the immutability of blockchain tech has in Bitcoin and other altcoins, writes public key information into the ledger, which could be read back potentially at some point in the future and have uh, funds moved around. So, and has not just the project's blockchain code been audited, but also does the code's digital signature algorithm is that based off something that the NIST recommends or is nationally recommended that has been peer reviewed? So not just the blockchain being audited being twice audited is best, but also that DSA component, how the signature gets signed on the network. So those are four interesting qualifiers that if you're trying to, in my opinion, and Kaushal, it sounded like you mirrored a lot of that. That if you want to, if a project is really quantum secure, then those are the four things that you would look at first. At least that's what I would do.
Yeah, starting there, and then from there, as you mentioned, from Genesis, how long has the project been around? Are they on a regular cadence, sharing in a variety of ways, whether it's through media, whether it's through platforms like a Discord, Twitter, like how's the activity looking, and are you seeing the direction of it progressing over time? Is the team active? Those are some other areas. So I think that's a really good starting place in terms of anyone starting from a clean slate in doing their research and due diligence is a starting place for that.
And for those that might be new to this project, we've been running for 6 years. We're our own chain. We're not an ERC20. Everything Kaushal said is what's on the table for development. Hopefully, we're targeting end of year here, but we are our own chain. We're our own chain. You have to run a QRL node. You can't run us. We don't run on Ethereum. We don't run on Cardano. We don't run. Nothing against those projects. I like those projects, but quantum secure, are they? No.
So shooting out of that strike, I think a next good question from the AMA community questions we pulled is, with the upcoming hard fork, will there be an update to the QRL app for Ledger hardware? At the same time, I imagine it will be necessary for Zond? Question mark. That's the question from the community.
Well, yes, the hardware wallet functionality will be there. We have to make upgrades to ensure that we support both XMSS and dilithium into the hardware wallet. So yeah, there would be upgrades with that. And the team is already working with the wallet and the explorer. So there would be hardware support. So no issues, no doubt with that. Along with that, as I already mentioned, that we are also going to support new tools like for the smart contract, which was the remix ID. So yeah, these are all in the plan. Yeah.
Cool. I'm going to jump into the next one, which is another community question, and I'm going to read it as they read it. So it's when is mainnet expected? I'm a miner, and how many QRL I would need to run my own solo node? I know you've touched on that a little, but we can just reiterate on that for them. And I like their wording here. Clear expectations, please. I need to plan ahead, deciding on buying or selling QRL or hardware for my QRL objectives. So I can really visualize them asking this question. So if you want to just briefly touch on this for them or anyone else that has a similar question and they're thinking about their hardware, however you want to cover this one, Kaushal.
Okay, so in terms of requirement, as we already mentioned, that we require 40,000 QRL. That's what decided for now, but it could change. Chances of changes are like it should not be a big change if it happens. And so, in terms of hardware, I think you cannot expect a Raspberry Pi to run on these kinds of nodes because it's going to consume sufficient RAM and sufficient disk space. So you should be good with, I think, 1 terabytes of disk space should be good for a year. Depends upon how many transactions happens on the smart contract. But if lots of transactions happens, then it could fill up within a year. Other than that, you have to ensure that your network should be reliable because we are using post quantum signature. That means there would be huge requirement of bandwidth. Every time you sign a transaction, this transaction size would be way bigger compared to what you see on the Ethereum or any non-post quantum blockchains. And because there is a proof of stake network now, and earlier we used to do proof of, right now it's happening with proof of work, but with the proof of work, there is no signing happens when the blocks are created. But with the proof of stake, there would be lots of validator, they would be signing, one would be proposing block, many validators would be signing for the attestation of the block, and because of that, there would be at least uh, 25 20 to 25 transactions which will be totally for this proof of stake consensus mechanism. So you will always see 20 to 25 transactions coming from the network. So just think like 20 to 25 transactions will be it's signed by dilithium, so it could be somewhere around 100 or 125 kilobytes of data uh, just for the transactions. And when it comes to the block, so per block would be around 200 or 250 kilobytes of block. So yeah, there is a huge bandwidth requirement. Not that huge that you have to have a supercomputer, but yeah, I mean very high speed internet. But yeah, it should be enough that your internet should be able to sync quickly. Should be less downtime and should be stable internet because of this block size of around 250 kilobytes. And that's all when I assume that there is no other transaction, like no other transaction which is based on the user based transactions. It's totally just the proof of stake consensus mechanism transaction. So if you make a smart contract transaction, then the block size could go around 1 megabytes to somewhere around there.
So I want to touch on a couple things, interesting things that you said, Kushal. I'm going to put my network engineer hat on for a sec. One of the things that I want to be, I want, and you can confirm this. One of the important takeaways is I can see a lot of people focusing on the hardware and making sure that they have sufficient resources in order to run the node, but not paying enough attention to their internet availability and if they're running on maybe Wi-Fi, if there's any packet loss there. And I heard you say 200. I think you said 256 either kilobytes or kilobits per block. I wasn't sure which one it was, but that's not necessarily like a lot of bandwidth, but it does require like essentially low latency and availability, high availability and low latency. So it's go ahead and comment on this. It's going to be just as important to have the proper to not just have the proper hardware, but also be able to have a consistent, stable internet connection that has low latency and that is up. So I could see some node operators running on Wi-Fi, and Wi-Fi is not perfect. There is packet loss there, but when you're running a proof of stake node, it's the quality of the network and your ability to reach out to other nodes is just as important as the hardware itself. Feel free to comment.
And in terms of the bandwidth which I mentioned, like 256 kilobytes of block size is looks small. But what happens when you run the node, there is also chance that let's say we have got 10,000 blocks already built on the node and a new node joins the network and it starts syncing, downloading some of the blocks from you. You send around 5,000 blocks and you end up, like it could be around like 256 that would be megabytes, and then 5,000 is going to make it like 1 gigabyte of data already transferred to
But
another.
you're not going to get slashed on not having the bandwidth. My concern is if you're going to get slashed or not.
You could be if you are not performing your duties at the time. So let's say in proof of stake network you have a specific slot on which your node has to act, your validator has to act, and if that specific slot you fail to act, like if you are a block proposer, you created the block, but because of lack of bandwidth or too much bandwidth uses, you fail to transmit the your block within a given time. So that would be uh, that would be taken as you failed to perform your duties, and so you may get the penalty for that. So the penalty doesn't happen, it's like if you miss just one block you get the penalty. No, it doesn't happen like that. It's like if you do this missing thing multiple times, and then you become eligible for the penalty and you can get slashed, something like that. But if it happens once, it's not a big issue. But yeah, you at least lose your reward, because if you would have created that block or you performed your duty, you might have got that you would have got that reward, but because you failed to perform, so you lost your reward. So that's one thing.
Okay, so yeah, so that's fair. So then, if and then it's not just about the traffic on your node; it's also the traffic on the rest of your network. So if someone's using YouTube or downloading Netflix or doing something like that, that all ties into your that's going to all tie into your bandwidth. I guess it's just a proof of work, proof of stake. That's an argument that's been, that's a school of thought that's been around for blockchain for many years now. But that's I think those are good points as far as when you're proof of work, you can jump in and out. It doesn't really matter. Proof of stake, you have to be available, you have to be online. In Kaush's point, you have to have the bandwidth. You have to have a solid internet connection. So I think that's the important takeaway.
Yeah, and I think it's important you brought it up as well, as people that are deciding and considering, as not just, hey, I'm going to do this. They have to be thinking about the if there's any constraints or anything else that they should be thinking about. So thanks for helping dive into that deeper, Kaushal, based on Strike's additional questions. I think we have 3 more questions maybe to wrap up the AMA. Kaushal, could you give us a little bit of insight in terms of this AMA question on developers working on the project? So this question is, how many devs are working towards the Zond code? So if you could just share a little bit more in terms of this, give us a little look under the hood in terms of how many devs are working on it, or at least maybe even what it is they're working on. I know it's going to vary depending on the different developers. They're on different areas a little bit, but cover this a little for us, Kaushal. Will be helpful.
Yeah, so I and Ricardo both are working on the Zond core code, which is both Zond and the Chrism. Uh, and JP is already working on the Explorer and the wallet stuff. He has met that internally. Along with that, we are going to have a new dev joining us within next 2 weeks, who is going to start working further on the Zond wallet as well as the Explorer. Uh, and then we have plans to add more developers, because right now we are at the stage where we have to parallelize things, because right now we are at the stage where we could parallelize the things. Otherwise, previously we were at the stage where we can't parallelize just because of the uh, we were working on the consensus and lots of data structure changes which could break everything. So yeah, that's the plan. So as mentioned, two devs working, including me, two devs working on this core project, core part of that. JP is working on the Wallet Explorer. Another dev is going to join us within 2 weeks. He will work again on Wallet and Explorer. James is working on the documentation. He has already created lots of documentation. So yeah, he will further work with this API documentation, all those stuff that we are going to have with the Zond. And as mentioned, we have plans to add 1 or 2 more devs to further work on the core protocol.
Yeah. No. Thank you for covering that. Strike, do you have any last questions coming out? I know we've covered quite a bit within the AMA. Do you have maybe one or a wrap up question? I think I might maybe have one more, but any other ones on your side?
I don't think so. I think that pretty much covers. I think that covers everything.
Yeah. There's no more community questions. We kind of grouped a few of those together, but just as a wrap up of the AMA, Kaushal, is there any last tidbits that you'd like anyone in the community, whether it's let them know info wise, or even maybe a small ask or anything else for them to keep in mind, big picture in terms of what they might expect in the next couple months, or do you think we've satisfied that throughout the AMA? I think we've covered quite a bit. I just want to give you an open window if there's anything else we missed.
Well, yes, I mean, we have already covered lots of stuff. So the only thing that is like we are going to build lots of tools, which mention like the Remix ID and other stuffs with the like Chrome extension wallet to make sure people can deploy the smart contract. What we need is at this moment is to people to start in the community to start thinking and building apps on the test network, so that when we will have the mainnet, it would look like we have some real decentralized applications running on the QRL Zond blockchain.
Is there anything? Do you recommend them going to any particular place, or just diving into the conversation within Discord? Any asks for them if they let's say they get started and they hit a hiccup? Any place or two they should go? Whether it's jumping into the documentation, whether it's sending a message in a certain Discord channel. Any added
Yeah,
notes for them as they're listening to this?
yeah, they can always jump on the. They can send us a Discord message or send an email to the team, and the respective team member will join the conversation and will help whatever help is possible. In
Yeah.
terms of the start, if they want to build something on the blockchain, we already have the Zond contract example already shared with the repositories, where people can take that sample code and start building on things and can test their code if it works as expected. There would be because we have already released testnet, if there would be any changes, that would not be a major in terms of APIs. But yeah, XMS's inclusion will be the major change because it's a new cryptography which is not yet included into the last testnet release for the Zond. So XMS's will be included. So, but other than that, if people start building things from now on, then there is high chance that when we will release the Zond mainnet, their main product that will be ready to run on the Zond mainnet.
Yeah, no, thanks. That's really helpful. Kushal, Michael, and I really appreciate you hopping on to go through a ton of these AMA questions. I know we kind of moved from one topic to the next, and back a little bit, but really appreciate you taking the time out of the busy development schedule to chat with Michael and I, answer some questions, and really just provide helpful insight for the community. I know a lot of us, all of us on the team and the community are excited about what is to come. So we look forward to not only the progress upcoming, but also in the next couple months having you back on and discussing the continued progress. So thank you for joining us, and for those in the community, as always, have a great rest of the day and keep those digital assets post quantum secure. We'll see you in the next episode. Thank you.